All right. Let's get started. Welcome to the nice episode of MEV Space. MEV Space brings together the sharpest minds in crypto to dissect the evolving MEV and Ethereum landscape. Today is kind of special because, as Ethereum enters its second decade, so three ideas actually reshaping its future. These are pre-confirmations, rollups, and sharing sequencing. So together, these three ideas actually sub-second promise sub-second UX, cheaper scaling, and credibly neutral coordination across chains. But there are still some big questions remain. Like, what guarantee do these systems really offer, and can we scale without centralizing? And how do we align validators, builders, and users? Um, so first, I'd like our speakers to have a brief introduction about themselves and answer the question, which is for your project, what types of pre-confirmations are live or DevNet or mainnet? So first, I want to start with Murat of Premev.
Hey, thank you. It's Primev. Yeah, my name is Murat. I've been in the space for a long time. It's nice to see everybody on the call here. The gang seems to be here. We've developed a network called MEV Commit. It's been live on mainnet since beginning of the year and growing with relay, builder, validator, L2s, dApps and wallets, and also now. I think we've passed about 5,000 pre-confirmations that settled on chain, with something around like 100,000 commitments that were made on the MEV commit chain for various reasons. We're looking to grow these. It supports inclusion and execution pre-confirmations, but most of what we're seeing is execution by default. Excited to kind of talk more about where things are with everyone.
Okay, nice. Next we have Amir from Puffer.finance.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me on this space. As everybody knows, Puffer.finance started by focusing on really decentralizing the Ethereum validator set and solving some of the initial Ethereum challenges from the past year. We continued on working on more solutions. Our focus right now is launching a rollup stack that is not only battle tested but also introduces composability across the entire Ethereum. And on this path, we decided to choose based sequencing, which is the ultimate form of shared sequencing. Naturally, because of the speed of base sequencing, we had to adopt a pre-confirmation architecture that supports very fast transactions and also supports the best UX. So we have actually partnered with the Gattcha team to be able to support gateways for our rollup stack. Essentially, our idea is we can provide the economic security for now, all of these gateways that can get registered to this, what we call an AVS on top of the eigenlayer. As you know, pre-confirmations are commitments, and we do need some format of economic security for them. We do also see these pre-confirmation and the architecture of gateways as a pathway of towards decentralization and very decent uptime in terms of sequencing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next we have Kevin from ETHGas. Kevin, can you hear us?
We can let's move on to Kubi from Gattcha, and we'll come back to Kevin.
Sounds good. Hey everyone, I'm Kubi. I'm the co-founder at Gattcha. At Gattcha, we primarily focus on building high-performance infrastructure, historically mainly focused on the block production supply chain. So we operate Titan Builder, which is the largest block builder on Ethereum mainnet at the moment. And we also operate Relay. In terms of infrastructure or projects that are live specifically connected with preconfs. So we actually work with most teams. So for example, we work with Primev, and we're currently live with them, both on the Relay and the Builder. On mainnet, we are also currently integrated with ETHGas now recently, and are live with our block builder there. And we've also built pre-confirmation gateway for rollups specifically, in the context of base sequencing. So we also, as Amir said, work with Puffer on that front as well.
Okay, let's back to Kevin with ETHGas.
Cool. Can you guys hear me now? Is that coming through? Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, hey, good evening from Hong Kong, where we are perpetually, well, in like typhoon season, and it's just wet every day. But yeah, good to connect with you guys, be a part of this. Thanks for having us. Yeah, so Kevin, founder of ETHGas, basically, what are we doing on mainnet? Well, basically, we have, I'll talk about it from a product perspective and the market perspective. So we're live on mainnet with basically like a whole block market, meaning you can like buy an entire block of gas, and you could trade that block of gas multiple times, and these can trade both within a primary and a secondary market, although we're not seeing that much secondary trading. But yeah, you can do that with a whole block market. You can also do that with, you can strip it down into a top of block, a bottom of block, and we can do inclusion pre-confs as well. So all of this is live on mainnet. We were in a testing phase for about a month, and then I'd say just prior to ETHCC and then following ETHCC, got another kind of a half dozen operators on board to join the network. And then we hit August, and I think people are on vacation. So that's where we are. But I'll pass back to you guys.
Okay, last but not least, we have Drew from Commit Boost.
Yeah, probably the least exciting on the intro question, but I'm Drew, and I help shepherd along Commit Boost, which is a sidecar for validators to provide commitments, a standardized way for them to provide commitments for things like pre-confirmations. I think all the pre-conf teams on here are either compatible with or building on top of Commit Boost, and so very happy to support this effort. It ties well into based rollups, which is critical for synchronous composability across Ethereum.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining today. We're excited to talk more about these pre-conf solutions you guys are building out. Quick intro for BTCS. We're publicly traded on NASDAQ. We're a block builder on Ethereum. We run a bunch of validators. There's been a lot of hype with digital asset treasuries lately. We are accumulating massive amounts of ETH along with the other other big boys in the space right now. So there's a lot of exciting things. In terms of relevance for the pre-comps, we were the first external builder on most of the pre-comps that are live today. We kind of pride ourselves on being fast to integrate with these other pre-comp solutions. So ideally, as more come alive, we'll be quick to integrate as well. But yeah, kind of the next step of these questions here is, we know it's live today. You guys have just mentioned it, but what are you guys looking to launch tomorrow, or what's the next step for kind of your roll up? And we'll start with Primev.
We're looking into better auctions and more privacy, which are kind of economics and cryptography are kind of our wheelhouse. So we're looking to improve those two areas basically. With privacy, there's a lot of kind of buzz going around, but technology is still limited. Although you do see this kind of real-time proving related buzz, the real time is quote unquote in 10 seconds. So it's very different from the notion of trading real time. So yeah, more privacy, better economics. It takes a lot of time to kind of model the economics. Some of you may know, our research on mirror kind of models, some math behind pre-confirmations and related stuff. So yeah, we're looking to advance both those areas and bring a new kind of chapter to MEV commit. We're also decentralizing and making the chain behind MEV commit faster. So that's a huge initiative that we've been looking to undertake. The P2P network and the encrypted mempool are already decentralized. The only remaining kind of piece of the puzzle has been the chain, essentially, which we've been running. But yeah, it's starting to kind of decentralize, and we have some exciting updates that we'll be announcing there as well.
Awesome. Amir?
Of course, we're really going after the ultimate verticalization through our validator, our gateway registry, and on top of our stack, ultimately our rollup. If I would like to say what we do tomorrow is actually getting our rollup as the app chain that replaces the smart contracts and ultimately creating this app chain launchpad. Actually, to follow up on Murat's comment, we actually did achieve real-time proving towards using our novel TE proving structure that we have a multi-TE like trusted hardware, and we have been able to achieve under 800 milliseconds of real-time proving, like giving us the ability to compose on top of Ethereum L1 and ultimately, eventually, like across other L2s as well. So. And you can already see that all of these tech stacks like built on the foundation of Ethereum as validators. And what we'd like to see, of course, is like some format of standardization, so we don't get any mistakes on issuing the preconfs and we don't cause any extra slashing. But I'm pretty sure talk about that later.
Awesome, that's exciting. Let's see, Kevin?
Yeah, this is all interesting stuff, guys. I was like, we should hopefully all get together like in person at some point or another. I wonder when that'll happen, but I look forward to it at some point. On our side, it's really just kind of tuning. So, well, I'd say a few things. One is analytics and like a dashboard. So we have a dashboard we're putting together. It's like almost there. We had some issues just on attribution with like SSV and some of the DVT stuff, but that's I think largely done. So I think that'll be like the biggest kind of near-term release on our side. That aside, it's really just tuning in the background. Where basically when we onboard the operators or validators, there's a lot of questions and opportunities around like latency optimization and timing games. So a lot of our effort has actually been spent on, I guess, trying to understand that better and seeing how we can roll out enhancements across kind of like multiple validators at the same time. So that's what we're doing on our end.
Awesome. Kubi.
Yeah. So on our side, I would say similar to Kevin, continuing to work with the existing teams that are now on mainnet and are starting to see the first points of traction to really tune and try and scale these systems up, get more distribution together, and actually see these things come to life at scale. So I think that's what we are super excited about now that a lot of the heavy lifting has been done. But then the other thing is sort of the North Star of base rollups, which is synchronous composability. And we've worked with the guys from Puffer and have a subset of synchronous composability features sort of live in testing, but like fully synchronous composability like across the L1 and L2s is not solved yet. So I think that's one of the most exciting one that's up and coming.
Cool. And Drew, any new features coming to Commit Boost?
No, just pushing adoption. We are gearing up to get to our V1, which we had one last part of an audit that should be closed out in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, we sit publicly on our dashboard, have about 17% of mainnet validators now running commit boost, but that number is more like 21%, just after running some numbers overnight. And so super excited to see that, and we'll just keep going. I think the other thing that's really top of mind for me is just making sure that as these networks and systems and the general pipeline develops, we remain the autonomy with the proposers, and they sort of have the power, and they're not locked into vertical integration, and that it's a complete open market. You're starting to see things happening across the PBS stack that really concerns me, and so I just want to make sure we're still pushing for an open system and are trusting our million plus validators across Ethereum.
That's awesome. Yeah, at BTCS, we're working on transitioning from MEV Boost over to Commit Boost. We have a kind of a custom setup with our MEV Boost right now. So ideally, we'll be on Commit Boost this month.
Nice. Well, let us know if there's any features you need, and love to have you.
And that's after you hit $1 billion of ETH, is that right?
Oh my God, I can't. No, I never said that. Charles is listening. Don't get me in trouble, Kevin.
All right.
Yeah. Drew, would you mind explain more about your concern on ePBS?
Yeah, it's not a concern with ePBS. It's more a concern generally of just how people are trying to vertically integrate. Yeah, I'm hearing rumors like relays are only going to be able to use certain builders or certain networks, and for me, the whole premise of Commit Boost was a lot of it around just ensuring it was easy for validators to switch between these networks to make their own decisions and just returning autonomy to them. No offense to the builders and relays and others on this call, but it's critically important that Ethereum remains decentralized through its validator set. And that has always been my goal with Commit Boost and continues to be. And as we kind of talked about a year ago, we're now starting to see this with teams buying builders and teams buying relays and the whole host of things which we expected to come, and now it's kind of happening. So for me, it's somewhat of my mission to keep the power with the validators and trust them just like we have, and it's the superpower of Ethereum.
Yeah, is there any very solid updates on which team buying which builders or relays?
I think there's rumors out there about people buying builders and order flow now being used in certain ways that just isn't healthy, at least from my point of view for Ethereum. It's great to have the competition, but that's the key thing, is making sure it's an open market for anyone to compete. So I'm not going to specifically call out any teams. I think there's been blog posts by you guys around some of this too. And you start to see Beaver in particular shutting itself down. They made a lot of money. There must be a reason why that happened. And so I'm just hopeful that people have their eyes open, and validators in particular understand what happens if they get vendor lock-in across the supply chain and what that means for their revenue, and that they themselves push to make sure that remains open. And I'm going to just keep educating and pushing that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good timing to ask the next question. So next question is, what are the guarantees users, searchers, and apps can rely on today? So I want to start this question with Amir and Kubi, since you guys are working together on some solutions regarding this part.
Of course, I guess I'll go first. The guarantee that we're really looking is naturally the economic guarantee around these commitments. Specifically, the commitments that we focus on is L2 execution pre-confs. And the idea behind it is first of all, we need to follow a form of a standardization for selling these pre-confs, so validators will not make mistakes. So we don't want validator A to start selling the pre-confs across the entire map and be ultimately mess up this pre-conf. That's where really economic security comes in, and that's where we launched the Unify ABS, where actually the Ethereum validators get to decide which one of these gateways they get to delegate to, so they can submit their pre-comps. On the gateway side as well, now that we have this delegated entity that gets to post users' commitments, we need to be careful that like no malicious activity happens, or in terms of the liveness faults, the users will receive will either get a refund or will be compensated in a way. Now, another thing that we really think about this is in the concept of slashing. Generally on Ethereum, when a validator is malicious, some ETH will get slashed. I tend to call it being slashed to oblivion. But really, like, this slashing is to benefit the entire ETH holders because they're they took the risk, and according to that risk, they have been damaged. So reducing the ETH supply means that everyone across the validator set will in some form get compensated. Now, if you extend this slashing for preconfs, actually be like slashing this ETH to compensate the entire ETH holders might not make them like entirely make sense. However, the folks that have already purchased or have been in the network of pre-confirmations are affected. So coming up with a form of redistribution is like necessary here to actually keep interests aligned. That's why we're working on Unify EVS in that matter to come up with the redistributed slashing, potentially refunding, and other methods to keep all the interests aligned on like the economics of these pre-confirmations. I'll pass it to Kubi to also take.
Yeah, not much to add here. I would say in general, like with the movement of base pre-confirmations, the idea has been that the guarantees that were historically given, especially from the perspective of rollup operators, by the centralized sequences, and where the slashing was just in the form of social slashing, now is being transitioned to the form of crypto economic guarantees, and there's actual slashing based on collateral. And then there's still some variety in terms of how that gets realized, i.e., does it actually is the amount of collateral that is being slashed is actually burned, or is some of that used to compensate the user who got his pre-confirmation guarantee reneged? But I guess all of that to say, the guarantees that are now being given across Gattcha users and whoever else requests these pre-confirmations are being transitioned from sort of social slashing guarantees to actual economic slashing guarantees.
Anyway, I also have some input on this one. Drew, I want to ask, what's your input on this one? Like, what do you think of the guarantees that Commit Boost can provide for users such as and apps?
Yeah, I hope one day Commit Boost, the concept of a software, is actually in the CL itself. That's kind of my end state and end goal here, is to allow similar to what we saw out of Barnaby and the old research group they had around, they called it Pepsi back then. But the ability to make commitments in the CL would definitely help with this. Until we have that, we have to rely on two things. You got cryptography and economic sort of like incentives or guarantees that are backing that. The cryptography is being worked on. I think we talked a little bit about this in the context of real-time proving. This similar can be used for these commitments as well. But till it's ready, we got to have some economic backing for this. And a lot of people are critical of economic backing and collateral being used, but I don't know, maybe they've never read a financial book or look at traditional markets, but this is what powers how we all operate today. And there are problems with it. Things do happen, but largely society has functioned quite well with it. And so I certainly don't have a problem with it. And there are a lot of guarantees that are backed by it in society today. And so for me, it's just finding that sweet spot and testing the markets out and landing in a good place. So I happen to be quite happy with the direction things have gone and are going. Cryptography would be better, but we're just not there. And the other thing I want to hit on is just using, a lot of people are looking at TEEs, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it really is a poor man's cryptography. It's not the end state, and we shouldn't settle for that. We should really be pushing for ZK and other technology. And I think that's the key thing that we all need to realize, is relying on things like TEEs long term is just a shortcoming, and it's not really sensitive resistance, and I don't think it benefits Ethereum.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that, based on the context that I gave earlier on some of the research. The research is being done that around cryptography specifically, and definitely T's are a shortcut towards that, and it's not doing the actual cryptography. It's very trusted in that sense. It's very important to remember that the T stands for trusted. So it's a good shortcut, and it allows us to get to where we are today. But the holy grail is, as Drew said, it is zero knowledge and kind of not being able to see or decrypt and not having to trust whatsoever. And that's the area that we probably have maybe the rest of the decade to get to in terms of speed and efficiency. And we can boost that if we get some specialized hardware that's looking at this specifically. But then there's some other details that come in there. But yeah, ultimately we solve all of this using math and not magical boxes.
Nice. You guys are getting a little spicy over there, Drew, with a couple of the comments today, but I'm loving it. So I love that you don't want to be too divisive, but I do appreciate what you're talking about and what you're sharing. Awesome. So let's move on to the next one. I guess what teams are you guys looking to work with, and who are you working with right now? What's the what kind of like connections are you guys looking for? And we'll start with Primev.
Yeah, I mean, definitely looking to deepen our relationships with everybody on this call on a more, technical level. There are, block builders on MEV Commit, who join as providers. I'd love to see them be able to join, for example, the Unify AVS as a gateway, as a provider. So maybe that's permissionless, maybe it's not, but would love to work closer with the team over there. Love to deepen our integrations with all the block builders here, expand their coverage and the types of commitments that they can make. And maybe we'll have some more looks into commit boost as well, seeing how we can increase our relationship there. And yeah, with ETHGas, also like we'd love to see them maybe deploy a contract on the MEV commit chain to do what they're already doing, but be able to reach MEV commits validators or others, or even some of the bids that are coming through MEV commit that can go through ETHGas blocks. So all of these kind of are protocol interoperabilities, I would like to say, that we'd love to proliferate more and more. Ultimately, we shouldn't all kind of march in our own lane. We should kind of mix and match lanes as well to make all of the protocols successful and grow the pie. So, and I feel that folks on this call are key to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think everyone here would love to deepen our relationships with each other. Let's see, Amir, who are the teams you're looking to work with right now?
Of course, like as you all might know, like we have never shied away from focusing on delivering the roadmap that benefits Ethereum like as fast as possible. And our idea is like cooperation and collaboration across the teams can get us to that goal much faster than what the way used to be. Instead of us thinking that we can handle all the entire tech stack, we do believe that there are teams, like including on this call, that are like very focused and qualified to actually build different portions of it, so we can achieve the Ethereum scaling in a much shorter timeline. That's where, as you know, we're already in collaboration with the Gattcha team. But of course, like as our technology and as our tech stack matures, we can of course start collaborating with others. Like one thing that, for example, Murat mentioned is getting these gateways opted into Unify ABS. Like we want to expand our gateways that operate under the Unify ABS, so we can ultimately achieve the decentralized sequencing across all the roll-up stacks. And of course, like as you all know, like we also do, for example, still onboard validators to Puffer as our liquid staking platform too. That's another venue. And ultimately, like the teams that we want to start talking to is the teams that are deciding to get their own chains. Getting your own chain as sort of either a general purpose chain or an app chain has shown that kills the network effects that you might be exposed to, because you're not tapped into any composability layer, and you're essentially creating your own environment. We have even seen some of the killer apps that have recently launched, like PerfDex or like things like Hyperliquid. There could have been a much higher potential with being able to tap into the Ethereum network and being able to use that. So we're also looking to actually collaborate with some teams on that front as well. And of course, the last but not least, we do collaborate with the Commit USP team, because like I mentioned initially, like we want to keep the standardizations pretty uniform across the map. So we don't invent things that do not end up like the same multi-chain experience that we get today, which things don't interoperate and we have to later try and fix it.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I think the one thing that's super important that I don't think a lot of people are understanding with pre-confs is it's really helping to keep L2s excited about Ethereum right now in the short term. Like the base sequencing, base rollups, all these things are really empowering Ethereum to, I think, scale for some of these L2s. So some people are like, why do I want this? Why do I want to see some pre-confs get through? Or what's exciting about them to me? Like it's really keeping Ethereum relevant in the short term. But I think there's a lot of cool things coming long term as well. But we're still building. Let's see. So, Kevin, which teams are you looking to connect with?
A few, but I was going to say to your earlier point on L2 is I think there's this sequencing kind of Telegram group that many of us are a part of. But one of the things that came up there was like, with us being able to on the L1 pre-conf side, being able to provide these like soft commitments really quickly, right? Like on our end, we're providing these like real-time inclusion guarantees. We can effectively fill a block in like 50 or 60 milliseconds, and then we just run out of block space, right? And so, we're able to deliver that like low latency experience, but we're quickly going to run out of that block space, and that's really where the L2s and the base rollups come into play. So, I think we'll, as Murat and myself and Amir, as we all kind of get together and ramp up traction on mainnet, I look forward to us running out of that block space, and then kind of forcing ourselves into finding more composability with the L2s and base rollups. So anyway, just kind of combining like low latency with unlimited gas. So excited for that. In terms of people to work with, well, our first step was just getting a stable mainnet environment, and we're almost there. Still a couple of bugs here and there, and some tuning, as I mentioned earlier on. But in terms of like standard course of business, it's really just like the validators. We've had such like oh my god, I had no idea just like how diverse the validator set is. I mean, they could be running the same execution clients, but like completely different configs. And there's just such a diversity out there. It's like it's good and it's bad, if you know what I mean. But I'd say just anyone who's running like really weird configs as a validator would love to chat with you just to see if we can kind of make this work. So, of course, if you want to get higher yields and stuff, that's on the side. But separate to that, there's just kind of like the searchers and SexDex community. We have some guys on board who are looking to get involved in SexDex trading and basically kind of delegating the rest of the block to a builder. And so along those lines, we have a few builders on board already. There's not too many, but I think there's opportunities for even small builders to get involved with what we're doing. So across kind of those fronts, the kind of validators, searchers, traders / builders, we stay away from kind of like maybe the wallet and general order flow side of things. We leave kind of the builders to do that. But aside from kind of, let's call it standard business on the collaboration side, one of the next things we have on our plate is actually Murat is actually trying to figure out how we can work with you on your end. But we've just been kind of heads down, just trying to make things stable. So when we can lift our heads up, we should put our heads together.
Yeah, open to it anytime.
Awesome. Kubi?
Yeah, I would say from our perspective, would love to speak to more teams, they're actually going to consume these pre-confirmations, specifically teams that are looking to build new products on top of it, and just thinking through things more fundamentally. So from a perspective of having pre-confirmations, let's say on the L1 that are potentially in the millisecond realm, what kind of features can you offer to users, or what kind of products can you offer to users? That is one step, or that is a step change from what we have today. So that's super interesting to think about, and would love to chat to teams about this. And then additionally, just more either existing rollup operators that either want to improve their UX, so similar to some rollups that have started to do this today, no longer being limited to their block times. And even though it might be relatively faster than the L1, let's say with 2 seconds or a second block time, with pre-confirmations, you actually really unlock this sort of real-time experience. Plus, you have a lot more flexibility when it comes to the gas limit. So from the perspective of real-time almost block construction through pre-confirmations and block streaming, plus then as I mentioned before, the North Star of like actually being composable with the L1 and other rollups. So would love to speak to more rollup operators, either that are already live in production, have a significant ecosystem, but also potential new incumbents into the space that either have distribution already through like a larger user base, whether that's Web 2 or otherwise. Those would be the most interesting ones.
Awesome. And Drew, what kind of teams are you looking to connect with for Commit Boost?
Yeah, there's a couple subsets here. I think at the most generic and highest level, the most important thing to me is working with teams that want to support open competition and the best solutions for Ethereum, and not shove certain things down Ethereum's throat through leverage or other means possible. And so that's the number one thing for here. For me, I think everyone on this call that has been part of pre-comps all the way back to Berlin about a year ago, continuous collaboration, just openly discussing things. And I work on another effort called Fabric, and many of these teams spent hours discussing standards, all the way from the Puffer team trying things out to even, Murat from day one working and just helping us think through the supply chain of the PBS stack. So that's the top thing for me. The second thing is our quote unquote customers. If we're a nonprofit, we don't really have customers, but validators, anyone who hasn't tried Commit Boost but would like to benefit from the increased tooling that we provide to mitigate the risks of missing slots, and then also the enhancements on the efficiency side. When you benchmark MEV Boost versus Commit Boost, it's just hands down a lot better. And it's in our repo, you can see it. The last thing is we actually have an audit. Funny enough, MEV Boost never was formally audited, and we've had Sigma Prime go through our stuff, so it's just a security posturing. So those are the two buckets. And then for everyone on this call, outside of just working with me, work with these teams. I think it was Ben who said it earlier, but pre-confirmations are incredibly important for Ethereum and will continue to be important for Ethereum. And whatever we can do to forward the research is going to be critical.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, that's very great answer. So yeah, Kevin just mentioned some good and bads about validators. So I think we talked about validators a lot today, and my next question is actually about validators. It's like, what kind of mechanisms can be used to prevent validator favoritism or pre-conf abuse? So I want to start with Murat.
The question is, what kind of how can we prevent validators to abuse pre-confirmations? Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit tricky because of the different validator profiles that Kevin was mentioning earlier. For example, with MEV Commit, there are validator groups that have tens of millions of dollars in collateral that are backing their validators. There are some that come in via non-slashable methods, even though maybe it's legacy eigenlayer or some other methods. And then there are some that have collateral in the 1 to 3 ETH range per validator. So the profile is very different for a potential reneging or kind of violating protocol rules. In many cases you can slash them. In some cases there's kind of a like a points freeze or some sort of blacklist if they don't have enough collateral in the system but have a large number of validators, and they're most often a reputable institution as well, in staking with maybe multi-billions under their management, so they have more to lose than a few ETH actually via their reputation. So it highly depends on the validator profile, I would say. But to this date, and in my experience since the merge, with things going wrong in the supply chain, usually it's less a malicious act and more that people did everything to the best of their ability, but things went wrong. So we're more careful around those kinds of instances, and we monitor the network to see if something's going wrong, if some bids aren't making it through from either from the user side or from the block builder bids that are not making it through to the validators at all times. And there's very many moving parts there between regulated entities and regulated relays and not. So a lot of moving parts. But to this date, I'm happy to say we haven't seen an actual malicious validator trying to do something of that nature. But we have seen a few kind of faults where things weren't configured properly, or they did some shuffling with their validator keys, and it was partially opted into the protocol, but then they had to take it out, but they wanted to put it back in, and it caused some issues during that process. So to summarize it, I would say we're all humans, and I think making human mistakes is more the bread of the butter here than to kind of find malicious actors and that have a serious stake in the Ethereum supply chain.
Okay, Kevin, so what kind of mechanism does ETHGas have to prevent like validator favoritism or pre-conf abuse?
Well, I guess on the favoritism, I don't really understand what you're what the angle would be there. Maybe on the pre-conf abuse side, I'd really echo Murat's thoughts there. I mean, when we have a validator who signs on with us, for the most part, like they're running on mainnet, but there's some configuration or parameter missing, and like it's just not working. And so what happens is that someone's buying block space from this this validator operator, but it's not working, and the validator has gone on vacation, right? And so like, what do you do? As Murat said, like people are human as well, and so we need to kind of look at this. There's like this grace period we need to kind of work through with validator onboarding, and like who is to kind of take that loss? Is it like me or us as like a platform, because someone's paying for that block space, but someone's not getting that block space? The validator is also not ready to post collateral. They haven't even found that steady state. So again, we haven't come across, I guess, malicious actors yet, at least from what we can tell. But we're in a position where that if there was some behavior, we could probably clamp down. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to clarify on the validator favoritism. So it's like kind of like giving pre-conf access or block space priority to certain searchers, rollups, or builders, or those kind of things. So basically, it's like, how do you ensure fairness and neutrality in your system?
Well, on our side, it's just the market price. So it is like the price is the price for the most part. And so whoever from the validator side, whoever's willing to pay the most for that block space, like that's who's going to get the block space. I think the area where that may not flow through properly is really in respect of like OFAC. And in that case, like, well, if someone's going to buy the block space, ultimately that block can only be built by someone who has who's like an OFAC compliant builder or filtered network. And so it's a little bit tricky in those cases, because then we need to think that there's two entities, someone who can buy the block and someone who can build the block, and both of those need to be kind of whitelisted or cleaned beforehand. But that's probably the only case, I guess, where there's maybe favoritism or perhaps just like some selection. But let's chalk that up to kind of validator diversity and each person having different needs. So I wouldn't say that that's necessarily a bad thing.
Maybe I'll just jump in here, a quick comment as well. Like, that's like something that at Puffer has been our concern, like ever since day one. And we came out with like a more efficient, fully permissionless validator onboarding. So now, like today, you can actually like spin up a validator on Puffer with like 2 ETH only. And the philosophy behind it is permissionless and permissionlessness tied with economics are always like a good incentive to actually like get validators to have like honest operations. And for us, like since we need to maximize our coverage on the entire block space, we will opt in as many validators as we get into our network to actually opt into gateways and certain pre-conf providers. So for us, like since our entire validator set is permissionless, we don't even get to pick and choose like favoritism. Like we basically cover the whole map. And on the point of like human mistakes, let's say someone forgot to turn on their validators, even before Ethereum had the capability of ejecting validators on chain post Pectra, we came up with a way that if, let's say, you haven't been validating for a certain number of blocks, we will automatically kick you from our liquid restaking validator set. So there are primitives that we can also build around to cover for these potential malicious acts or potential ejections. But ultimately, everything comes back to economics. What is there to lose? What is on the line? And how can we guarantee that everyone behaves rationally?
Yeah, if I can just add, I think Amir's point is absolutely spot on. Why we're asking whether the most diversified and decentralized party in our supply chain of Ethereum is going to act maliciously. We're already on the defensive here. What we should be asking is, what about the 4 relays, the 2 builders, or the networks that are coming up that have whitelists and are gated? What is going to ensure they don't act poorly or against the users of Ethereum? I think Kevin said this earlier, and in my experience as well, Ethereum validators, their business is based on Ethereum staying decentralized, and they want to protect that. And each of them has a unique configuration and setup that, beyond the client diversity we have, really strengthens Ethereum and why it's been running for 10 years with nearly, if not 100% uptime. And so for me, the question is, outside of the validator set, who is going to be the malicious actor that pops up and does things that aren't healthy for Ethereum, but's better for their business? And I think we're already seeing that today, much less away from validators than someone is being proposed. And I know I'm being a little malicious here on the question, how it was asked, but that to me is the most important thing we should be pushing on, is how do we get a more diversified validator set? How do we get phones to be running these things and protect, at the end of the day, the knight in shining armor, which is Ethereum's validators?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mentioned a few weeks ago about how some teams are able to push code that's critical to Ethereum. Like the whole PBS pipeline was kind of forced down everyone's throat at the beginning. And like teams didn't really question it because of the team pushing it. And then now with pre-confs, people have been scrutinizing left and right, making sure that it's like perfect and fully thought out and everything's like spot on. But the like it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be concerned to make sure that the network's stable and healthy. But there have been teams that have in the past have pushed some pretty rough code that has caused millions of dollars of losses for for like trusted actors. So it's an interesting space.
Hey, Ben, if I could just jump in here on kind of Drew's earlier thought here, if it comes down to economics, right? Like when we onboard validators, one of the first things that comes up is latency and like co-locating, and we're quickly looking at like centralization in terms of like which data center and which location, which goes against the whole diversity and diversification. Now, I wonder if there's some type of incentive mechanism, or if we can construct one where we could effectively reward people for having different clients, having their data center not with a big cloud provider, and hosting on like a random island in the middle of nowhere. Like, I think it'd be an interesting exercise to see, like how could we make it economically worthwhile, or at least a little bit more worthwhile? But maybe we can have that conversation another time.
I actually really like that. I had proposed a while back that soul-bound ETH could be used for like issuance purposes on this aspect. So like you could remove one of your 32 ETH because you got a soul-bound ETH, to put in your, validator stake. And, you got that because you contributed to Ethereum being more diverse in some sort of way, whether that's, geography or the client that you're using. I've had some issues getting the EF to accept the nature of economics a few times. We've been part of this huge blockchain Web3 boom the past decade where, you could kind of ignore some fundamentals and get away with things. So, for example, the decentralization for the sake of decentralization, it just happens to work out in this phase. But, as we look towards the next decade or more, where we're going to be more under pressure around, fundamentals or other factors like latency, et cetera, I do think it's going to be important to come up with these mechanisms where the protocol does recognize, these factors in economics a little bit more.
Yeah. I was also going to say that like Rocket Pool has done a good job of this as well, and I think someone from them is on here as well. But like, there's anyway, we should definitely chat on this further.
Yeah, we're a Rocket Pool node operator. We don't really represent Rocket Pool, but we're very happy with the Rocket Pool team. We had a long Twitter space with them yesterday, actually, talking about our involvement with them and future work with them. So cool. All right, moving on. The next question we have is, what are you guys looking for the next Glamsterdam Fusaka upgrade? Any EIPs you're excited about, worried about, or concerns with that? And we'll start with Murat.
Yeah, two that are quite important for the topic that we have at hand here is the reduction of the slot time and, EPBS, I would say. I do think overall having a 6-second confirmation is better than 12-second confirmation. So, from a high level, it's definitely a yes. Devil's in the details. People are going to continue to play timing games. If you reduce the intra-slot time and people still play timing games, that could potentially destabilize the network more. You have very long-standing, fee mechanisms like EIP 1559 that adjust 12.5% per block. Now, if it adjusts 12.5% in 6 seconds instead of 12 seconds, you have a different fee escalation pattern on the network that you're going to see. So there are some kind of external considerations to some of these EIPs that, yes, we all want, 6-second confirmations over 12, but at what cost, and what are we not thinking through? So we, get stuck in these patterns of pushing things for the kind of the headliner benefit, I would say, and then, being stuck with some externalities 2 years down the line when no update to that has been pushed. And in EPBS, I do think it's a positive development. I mean, many of the original suggestions under EPBS we already shipped with MEV commit, such as, block billers being bonded, et cetera. I do think it's a net positive for Ethereum to recognize these actors within the protocol. But it does seem like the status quo is going to continue to be the major or dominant method, where you have, highly performant relays that are delivering blocks. You have block builders that will probably build blocks within the protocol and outside the protocol. So to that extent, I'm not sure if it achieves, too much of a status quo change, other than obviously a good thing, which is that the protocol recognizes these external actors within itself. So I'd be curious to hear others' thoughts on these two as well.
Amir?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question.
We're talking about the Fusaka and Glamsterdam upgrade. I kind of went out of order here, but I'm just
yeah. So I really think like there's like few things that I already made a post. Actually, like one of the websites has this really cool feature that you can like rank your like Amsterdam or like even like other future Ethereum upgrades in terms of like what you feel like should be added. And it's a great community effort that like projects come together and actually like lay out their prioritization. Um, if anything we learned from this entire cycle, like I believe like Ethereum scaling is one of the main like barriers. Like actually like that's probably what initially caused the like fragmentation that you've seen, and that became like a big issue for everyone. So like if I want to like in order call the like issues of Ethereum, for example, one of the like initial problems were like the overcentralization of the validator set in the previous cycle, like not this cycle but previous one, that we could have, for example, resolved for by adding the extra upgrades that we added today. For example, like on-chain, like Ethereum validator exits. And I do see like a much better movement from the EF and the entire community on actually getting more serious on delivering and shipping more upgrades. For Fusaka, as we know, like a main part of Fusaka that was exciting to all of us on this call as well is the look ahead. Actually, certainly, like the look ahead certainty, I call it the look ahead certainty EIP, where you can actually get a guarantee of which slot that you're going to be proposing on as a validator, which gives us as pre-conf issuers all on this call to get like a much more accurate guarantee of like what we're going to do, right? And I do foresee Glamorstam like also be like very much focused on this because Ethereum needs to scale. Ethereum needs to have composable rollups, and these are the facts that they're focusing on. So, for example, um, I see like Glamorstam like probably we gonna start focusing on a lot of things scaling with the like of course with a sprinkle of like always including a censorship resistance and more resilience on the whole Ethereum network as a whole. But and we are going to probably see this for the future 1 to 3 upgrades because I do believe like scaling should be prioritized on top.
Awesome. Drew.
Yeah, I think most of it's been covered. 7917 was the big one, and Fusaka. In Glamsterdam, our view, our official view at Fabric and Commit Boost was support of fossil first, and then that should be the top priority. And seeing what else we can slot in, still a bit of TBD. We did do some analysis on compatibility with Commit Boost and EPBS. There are no issues there. We can support Preconf still with EPBS in place. Might be some slight changes, but overall, generally quite nice together. So yeah, nothing really to add.
Awesome. Let's see. Kevin?
Nothing much. People have raised some good points, but really, there's shorter slot times. It basically makes everyone think a lot more about latency, which then again kind of pushes onto this like centralization of how everyone is running their infra. So that we'll kind of see how that pans out. I guess on the Enshrined PBS side, good thing. Kind of there's some tighter integration. There's some opportunities for I think builders to hold back or not deliver blocks, which leads to more like empty slots. And I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in some of these strategies. But yep, we're compatible. Don't foresee any kind of major issues on our end. And yeah.
Awesome. And Kubi, what are you guys excited for at Gattcha with the next upgrade?
Yeah, so for Fusaka, definitely PIDAS, given that like it just gives a lot more capacity going forward for scaling rollups, and super important from the perspective of based rollups issuing pre-confirmations, being able, as we discussed previously, to actually build blocks in real time. And with the scale of issuing these pre-confirmations faster, the more block space we actually can consume. So increasing the gas limit is going to be super important. And then the other EIP that Amir mentioned as well, basically important for everyone in pre-conf space, having a more deterministic proposal schedule. For Glamsterdam, I think headliner-wise, we are strongly leaning towards the shorter slot times with 7782, I think. So the obvious UX improvement, but also with having the slot times, you basically have an increased proposer sampling rate, which also means that you increase the censorship resistance. And I think there are also some studies that with shorter slot times, you should be able to reduce LVR by 30%. So I think that just makes it like an overall super strong candidate, like UX improvement, plus like increasing censorship resistance, having some other nice properties on the side. And then you can also very nicely couple that with 7928, which is BALS, so a block level access list, which overall is in terms of complexity fairly simple, but significantly add to the scalability, which obviously has been like for the past couple of months or since the beginning of the year, one of the key priorities. And then if complexity allows that, would really love to get Fossil in there, as Drew said, because as we're starting to rely more on these larger actors to do some of the heavy lifting, and this will be even more increased when we, snarkify everything, and we're going to have to do proofs, and we're going to have these really, really big, beefy blocks that it's going to be super important that there's some protocol level oversight that can enforce other transactions or other commitments almost on a protocol level onto the block. So I guess those would be the most important ones from our perspective. Like EPBS obviously has been discussed a lot. I think right now with EPBS, a lot of the focus or the biggest improvements in terms of relevance is currently actually the fact that there's delayed execution, which decouples the execution layer and the consensus layer, and means that we can have higher gas limits without needing to increase hardware capacity of validators. And so like the fact that EPBS does delayed execution sort of mixes the scaling capability a bit with actual EPBS, Enshrined PBS, which is like, bringing the builders into the protocol, which is a bit of a, I guess, mixing in terms of priorities. And given the fact that, as many people have already discussed, relays are still going to be around, and most likely block building will be done out of protocol still, even though some will be done within protocol. And I do think it's a really nice property to have the builders as a like actual formal actor within the supply chain. I'm not sure. I'm just not very convinced that the complexity at this point is worth it. So yeah, those would be obvious.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think it's almost time to wrap up. So I want to ask all the speakers here to summarize your ideas or your thinkings into one sentence. That sentence can be brought home by our audience here from this Twitter space about Preconf, about rollups, and about shared sequencing. So let's start from Amir. Just one sentence about like people thinking when they thinking about this Twitter space. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I do believe this is like a great gathering for all of us that are like focusing on keeping Ethereum decentralized while scaling it at the same time. And this was a great chat. Like, we already been, I think like everybody on this call, we've started this effort about a year and a half ago, like a little over a year and a half ago, of like really gathering and like putting our head together to come up with like solutions that not like in a safe manner we scale Ethereum, like, and essentially take it out of like a single party. Like, I'm pretty sure everybody mentioned that on this call, who decides like these like roadmaps and the ways that we go. So this has been like absolutely a blast working with these teams, and I do look forward in like more collaborations and actually like contributing more to this roadmap. So actually, as I mentioned, like I put a little post on Glamsterdam headliner ranking underneath this post. I encourage everybody on this call to actually go out and also like rank out their own preferences, because these are the things that Ethereum research and others do look at as some sort of an action item. If I want to like tell everyone, you know what to do. Visit Puffer app. Any ETH that you stake there, you're not only like getting the restaking rewards and the liquidity of the LRT, you're going to be exposed to the decentralization roadmap of Ethereum and tapping into this Preconf network. We do encourage anyone who is interested in building their own scaled application that requires higher throughput and lower gas fees to start checking out the Unify OP stack. We're going to make very big announcements about that in the coming weeks as well. So looking forward to collaborate with everyone on this call as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next one, Kevin.
Yeah, I guess I was trying to think of like one sentence. Couldn't really sum it up, but I guess I'd say the most important thing is actually just this call itself. Like I'm just happy that we're here all together, just kind of sharing ideas. A lot of us are, heads down, just working away on our stuff, and we, for the most part, are, we're driven by kind of like near-term objectives. But it's good to kind of come back and look at things from like a different perspective from people who have expertise in different areas of scalability. But as Amir said, we're all kind of like working together on scalability in kind of different shapes and forms, and to the extent that we can collaborate, that's awesome. So let's definitely do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure. Next, Drew.
Highly extractable businesses never prosper. Ones that provide a service such as pre-confirmations, the end users of Ethereum will. Thanks for everyone for having me.
One sentence. I love it.
Well done.
It.
Yeah.
Kubi, one sentence.
Okay, I'll also try to keep it super crisp. I would say what we are working towards is fast, real-time, composable Ethereum.
Nice. You did it. Very crisp.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Oh, no, I was just going to say thanks everyone for hopping on. Thank you for all the speakers for joining us today. I'm sure we'll have another space in a couple of weeks about pre-confs again. It seems like every team has been grinding hard and delivering lately. So very happy to get to speak with you guys again.
Absolutely.
All right, and let's all go to Argentina.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Let's enjoy the steak there. Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Yeah. Big steak. Yes.
For sure. All right. Thank you, guys.
Alrighty, folks.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.